Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you all today? I am Jamaica Cost. I am the founder and executive director of the Hummingbird Project, where we empower the Black community to heal from the traumas of sexual violence, including sex trafficking, sexual assault, and all forms of sexual violence. I am here today to talk about the intersection of faith and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we have had amazing conversation over the last 3 weeks. This is our third week in this series and conversation, using stories, accounts, more I should say, from the Bibles of Scripture. And so we have talked about Tamar, we have talked about Dinah, and today we are going to talk about the Levites concubine. And so as you come in, please let me know who's joining. I'll be looking here in the chat. But I thought it was important because with our organization, the Hummingbird Project, we are a faith-based organization. And what that means is we do operate under the principles of our belief in our faith and Christianity. However, we serve all, and we will not have someone who perhaps wasn't a believer or etc. To not serve them. We will always serve all and also respect all's opinions and voices, etc. We are about helping to end this narrative of sexual violence and its prevalence in the Black community. There are large disproportionate amounts of survivors and those who are being affected by sexual violence in the Black community, larger than most other marginalized populations. And so, in most sectors of sexual violence, and also and just gender-based violence and general domestic violence, um, you name it, sexual assault, trafficking, as I shared as well. And so it's important for us to have these conversations to curb the narrative. And there are many who have questions even about faith, about what has been happening and things that you have seen even in mass media about sexual assault happening in the confines even of the church. And the question is, well, what is it that God says about that thing? And then also, what is it that we are to do about it? And so I'm hoping that I'll give some insight into that one today, but would love to hear from you. You are experts in this conversation. I always say that you are experts in this conversation. When I look at, I believe one of the stats that I read was we are 1 in 5 in the Black community have experienced rape, and in comparison to our counterparts, which is 1 in 9. And so just looking at a stat like that, that's 2 times the amount in the Black community that has been reported. But the issue with that is the issue period is sexual violence, but one of the disproportionate effects of that is, Black people only make up 12%, less than 13% of the population in the United States. And so those type of numbers are very disproportionate in number. Even when you look at sex trafficking, the numbers are also disproportionately reflective on the national level and on local levels, where it's almost 40 up to 70% were identified as being Black or even brown as victims. And so that's problematic as well when it comes to the number and population. So that's why we look at these focus areas. We know that trafficking, we know that sexual assault can happen to anyone, and we want to prevent it from happening to anyone. And it's very prevalent in our in childhood and youth. And we know that we definitely want to protect our children and youth. And so these conversations are extremely important. So without further ado, I'm actually going to read the scripture verse that I'm pulling from, and then we'll have some conversation about that, and we'll take it from there. So the scripture verse that I'm going to be reading from today, it's Judges chapter 19, okay? And so we're going to read there, and I hope that you'll go and you'll read it for yourself as well when you get an opportunity to. But it says, in those days, Israel had no king. And now a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. But she was unfaithful to him. She left him and went back to her father's house in Bethlehem, Judah. After she had been there for 4 months, her husband went to her to persuade her to return. So I'll stop there. If you're not familiar with the term concubine, concubine is literally in those times and even in different forms today. In some parts of the world where concubines are seen as property. Did you hear what I said? It's seen as property. A person is seen as property. And in most cases, it was a wife. And she is seen as a wife to the husband, but the husband is seen as a master to the wife. And so she is bought by property. She has a lower class in a system and structure than an actual wife. And so usually the concubine was for the use of the husband, for his own personal needs, and also for the bearing of children. Okay. And so that in itself, I'm sure many have a problem with me even saying that. But remember, the scripture I'm reading from is over 2,000 years old, right? And so, and I can give you context to that and perhaps in another setting, but it's over 2,000 years old. And so yes, this is what was happening in this culture and time. And she is a concubine and she has left her husband. She has gone home. It doesn't say why she's gone back to her family, but she has gone home. And it says the word unfaithful to him, but I want to just be clear, it does not necessarily mean that she was unfaithful, meaning she had been with another man or something of that nature. It could be unfaithful in a different way of meaning she didn't stay where she was supposed to be as a concubine. She didn't remain, she went back home. Okay. And so even if she was unfaithful with in her marriage, that will not justify in any regard what it was that she experienced. As we continue, I'm going to skip down, and it says, verse 9, her husband came to get her, went to her father's house. And it says, then when the man with his concubine and his servant, that's the husband, got up to leave his father-in-law, the girl's father said, now look, it's most evening. Spend the night here. The day is nearly over. Stay and enjoy yourself. Early in the morning, you can get up and be on your way. But unwilling to stay another night, the man left and went toward Jabus, which is Jerusalem, with his two saddled donkeys and his concubine. So, for some reason, I've always noted here when reading this account, the father kept trying to keep the daughter. There's no context as to why. There's no insight. We don't know if he was trying to protect her. We don't know if there was something that was happening, even that was wrong within the confines of her home with her father. However, there was something he kept prolonging her staying there. But the husband said, no, we're going to leave on tonight. Verse 11 says, when they went near Jabus and day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, come, let's stop at this city of the Jebusites and spend the night. His master replied, no, we won't go into an alien city whose people are not Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah. And he added, come, let's try to reach Gibeah or Ramah and spend the night in one of those places. So basically, they were tired. And the husband says they had a servant with them, like a male servant with them. And he said, well, let's just stay here in this city while we're journeying home. The servant says, we don't know these people, and so we probably shouldn't stay in this city. And I'm going to tell you that's one common misconception, that sometimes we believe that sexual assault, sex trafficking, sexual violence only happens in this place, only happens in cities, only happens in areas that are impoverished, only happens amongst these people. And I'm going to tell you, sex trafficking happens where there's money. Right? Sex trafficking, sexual violence is not a respecter of socioeconomics. Okay. It happens in every form of household, in every region, in every area, and every part of this world. Right. So, but basically, he said, we don't know them. So let's not stop there. Let's go to another town that we know, another town that is the people of Israel. They're just another tribe. Right. And so he agrees, and they go to Gibeah and Benjamin, which is a tribe of Israel. They are the people of Israel. Um, they live in the mountains of Ephraim, but they are now going to stop and stay at another Israel tribe's city, which is the tribe of Benjamin, right? So they stopped and spent the night and went and sat in the city square, but no one took them into his home for the night. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the men of the place were Benjaminites, came in from his work in fields. Excuse me, came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" And he answered, "We're on our way to Bethlehem, to Judah, in a remote area in the hill country. And have been in Bethlehem in Judah. And now I am going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me into his house." He's telling him, no one has invited me to come in. It was customary for them to be hospitable when people came, when travelers came in and out, especially of the different tribes of Israel. We had both straw and we have our food that we have. He said, we don't have need of anything from anybody, so we won't be a hindrance to anyone, but we need a place to stay. The man says, you can stay with me. And so they stay in the house. 20. You are welcome at my house, the old man said. Let me supply whatever you need. Only don't spend the night in the square. This old man, he knew something about the square that they didn't know. Because he said, do not stay the night out here. There's a problem. And we have to have that level of community to be able to say, there's something going on and we need to beware. Community watch again, right? And in today's times, there's what they call community complicity. Like, we cannot have a community that is complicit in sexual violence. We need awareness. Everybody needs to know we don't stand for it, and we need to rally around together to prevent it and to be responsive when it happens. I'll share more about that, but that was the first indicator, even in those times where he said, he warned them. He said, we don't need you to stay out here. It's dangerous. So he took him and his donkey, and he washed their feet, and they all ate. While they were enjoying themselves, and I must say before I continue, I forgot to give this disclaimer. I'm sorry, this may be triggering. This information that I am sharing, it does touch home in many lives, and I don't want to. I want to honor that, and I want you to know I am sensitive to that, and so I'm mindful in my words. I'm mindful in sharing what needs to be shared, but also being empathetic to those who are hearing that I may not see. And so I ask you to ground yourself. I ask you to use your own coping mechanisms that you need, good, healthy mechanisms that you need to ground yourself, and to talk to a medical or a professional, mental health professional or friend, to help you if you are triggered by what is spoken today. And one of my points is, whenever we are triggered, that's an indicator to us that there's an area of healing that we still need, and that we deserve. All right. So while they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house, pounding on the door, and shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." This is what was stated in the text, right? And so the men are looking to be with the man. So I want you to know that assault also happens to men, right? It's not as highly reported as it is for women. It is more highly reported for women than men, but it does not mean that those numbers are not still high with men. Okay? It is high with men as well. It's just vastly underreported. The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, do not do such a vile thing. Since this man is my guest, do not do this disgraceful thing. Look, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But to this man, don't do such a disgraceful thing. If you heard that, it put fire in your bones." To hear that they were seen and offered as a sacrifice for this man's life, as if though this man's life is more valuable than even his own daughter, and then this woman that is a guest in his home. That was painful to read. That should have been also painful to hear, that this man said, "Do not do this to the man, but I will give you my virgin daughter and this man's concubine instead, and you can have your way with her." It is important that women feel protected, and that sentiment never happened. That women feel protected by men again, that women are seen as valuable and equal by men again. It is important in order to curb these numbers and these high stats of sexual violence against women, and as I stated, against men. Men and women have to be seen as human beings, right? No matter what the gender, no matter what the preference, no matter what, we are human beings. And no one should ever have the power or authority or even the thought and sentiment to marginalize, to say one is more valuable than the other. And that's what happened here in the text. It says, verse 25, but the men would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine. The man, that's the husband, took his own concubine and sent her out to them. He actually threw her out to them. And they raped her and abused her all night long. I'm so sorry to say that, but that is what happened. This is nothing new. This type of violence is nothing new. I've told you, this is written over 2,000 years ago, and before we had written context, it was happened then too. We live in a fallen world, y'all, right? We do. And I can tell you more about that as well. But it says at daybreak, verse 26, at daybreak, the woman went back to the house where her master was staying and fell down at the door and lay there until daybreak, and she died. She lost her life. Her life was taken. Her life was taken, and she was seen as property. She was abused. She was mistreated. She was pawned off. There was an exchange that happened. There are so many. If I looked at what were potential crimes that were committed, we know I'm being mindful, I'm sorry to syndicate my words. We know R was committed against her, right? We know assault was committed against her. We know they had a conspiracy against her. They were negotiating for a crime to occur. This is premeditated, okay? Battery against her. They abused her, okay? This was violent, beyond violent, okay? It's a mob. It's considered like a gang. This is gang R, okay? But also, there are aspects of exploitation in this. There are aspects, I would almost, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I would almost be inclined to believe that this is a form of trafficking. There's exploitation here, in that there was an exchange of something of value. The exchange of value was a man. They exchanged him, they exchanged her for his life. They exploited her, saw her and used her as if though she was just completely discardable. Just disregarded her autonomy, disregarded her consent. She had no voice. There was nothing that I read to you that said she said a word. She said nothing. But yet decisions were made on her behalf as if though she is merchandise. I have to tell you, in all sadness, that this happens today in different forms and fashions, in trafficking, in human trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, exploitation, sextortion, and even in sexual assault. Okay? And so I wanted to share this story with you because in the end though, there's justice. And it's not justice the way that we can legally see justice happen today, because it's illegal. The response was there was a civil war. The people, that they stood up and they said this cannot happen. Now, what was and I would encourage you to read chapter 20th, but for the sake of time, It's Judges chapter 20th, but the sake of time, I'll expound and give you some highlights from it. This man sent a message back to the tribes of Judah. There's 12 tribes of Judah. Sent the message back to them and told them, this is what happened amongst our people. What are we going to do about it? And some of the people of Israel said, we've got to annihilate them. They cannot exist amongst us because this cannot happen in Judah. There must be a standard. And that's my message to you as a community. We must set a standard to say, not over here, not in our world, not in our country, not in our towns, in our cities, not in our schools, not in our families, not in our communities. We have to uphold a standard and not just say it, but to do something about it. They did something. Now, in those times, they fought, they had war. Many lives were lost because of the life that was lost of this woman. That was their justice. Their justice in their eyes was to annihilate and eliminate the problem. Now, we know in today's times, there are laws around how justice occurs, and sometimes the law does not always cover what we need it to, but we need to know what the laws are. We need to stand for justice. We need your voice for justice. We start within our own homes, within our own families, within our own communities, and we speak against S violence. No more SA. No more trafficking. No more what happens in this house stays in this house. It's become a prison. And so I used the context of Tamar in week 1, Dinah in week 2, and now the Levites concubine in week 3, just to tell you truthfully, there's nothing new under the sun. Our response, we need to have a different response than what we have had collectively. We need to be louder. We need to engage more. We need to be aware. We need to learn more. Good morning. We need to learn more. We need to engage in conversations and action and be active more, right? We need to know what's injustice and what's not. We need to I might be making up a word, but disnormalize, unnormalize, denormalize some things that get overlooked in our communities, like adultification and parentifying our young children. No, they are children. We need to not blame and people sometimes in our communities we don't even realize we do it, but we say when someone was when someone's assaulted, we ask, well, what did you do? What were you wearing? That is victim blaming. We should never, ever, ever victim blame. The first thing we should do is believe them. Okay? That's the first thing that we should do. And so I just wanted to come on here. Again, this is my last segment of this series that I've done, the intersection of faith and essay awareness for Essay Awareness Month. And so it's coming to a close. April is Essay Awareness Month, but we need to be aware 24/7, 12 months out of the year, every day, all day. Because we need to protect our children, we need to protect our women, boys, and men. And I'm going to say this, we need these narratives of healthy relationships to be prevalent between men and women. I told you in that story, in that account, that man did not protect her. Women need to feel protected. They need to be seen. They need to be heard, right? And so vice versa. But because women have been so marginalized because of our gender, because listen, and Black women in particular, gender and race, dual marginalization. It's important for changes to happen, and it happens within us. It happens amongst us as a community, as a collective. We have to do it together. So I am going to end this note, this series on that note. I'm so glad for those of you who will watch this via a replay, who will watch this in your own spare time. Again, make sure you are being good to yourself. Make sure that you are tending to your own mental health, your own, if you were triggered by this conversation, it's time to still do some work within yourself. It's time to still get some healing, and you deserve it. You deserve to be whole. My hope is that these things never happen to any of us, but the statistics show us that it does. And so, I just want us to be well. Be well. So I'm going to end on that note. I do want to personally invite you to our up and coming brunch that will be happening. I'm going to come off screen.